Greetings. Unfiltered Inner Child. New episode here. You know how you in the shower, you get like clarity, realizations, and so forth. And I told myself, I don't want to hear that. I was telling myself, let me create this why it's coming up for me. I even had I'm in the shower. I know I ain't the only one that cried in the shower. Cause one thing about showers too is it's an emotional purge that you're going through. Most people don't know. Like, you're going through a cleansing when you're in the shower too. You know, there's a thing that people do, like shower meditation and so forth. That's a part of it. But that's a part of that experience. Yeah, it's like shower meditation. I just love the lighting. That's all. Shower meditation, that's not heavy enough. Yeah, so like shower meditation and all that good stuff. It's a form of cleansing yourself. So I was like, whew. So I just had things come up for me that like I wanted to share in regards to the inner child. It's things I'm gonna write about too. So I don't really know how long I want this video to be. But let's give an honor and gratitude for ourselves, for how far we come, and to Source, to Creator. I do this on my other videos, like Source, to Creator, Most High, whatever you subscribe to. You know, it's a very sensitive but vital topic. A lot of what I'm experiencing right now is a lot of a surrenderance and really recognizing what most people are unaware of. A lot of us, before I came to the awareness of even talk about said topic, is how many people are safe for your inner child. Yes. How many people are safe for your inner child? What does that mean? When you look at your childhood experiences, when you think about the fact of what you grew up in, and there's so many different ways and angles you can look at this. For me, I'll speak from my experience. The more I gradually grew into knowing what childhood traumas, adult traumas, and what it is to feel safe, I was just out there with you. My cat always comes to the window and she just looks at me in the eye like, wow, you know. But so that's so the inner child is the little boy and girl that's still with you. What I was having like these revelations about in the shower is how much I didn't see and accept the fact that someone wasn't safe for me, but I always bring it back to myself because I realized like how much I was unsafe for myself, meaning the self-harm and my inability to, at a moment, like navigate through my emotions in a healthy way or assert them in a healthy way, like balancing, the fact of seeing how people growing up who were in becoming abusive or asserting abusiveness, most likely they went through a cycle of abuse or some type of abandonment, something deeper that's not really on the surface. So with that, one moment, I'm preparing some foods too. So with that, I've noticed a learned behavior pattern. I've talked about this on my other videos, but I've gotten to a place now where it's a deeper, more profound acceptance. Oh, how did that get out there? Acceptance of just realizing how more safe I have to be for myself and protecting my inner child, and who's not safe for that. And it's things like the uncomfortability around you coming to this self-realization. So for some of us, you can be in predicaments where it's family, whether relatives, mother and father, or you can also have created your own family to where a lot of these things take a lot of having a lot of different patience. Something you didn't see before, but now you see now. And then the more you do the deeper healing or recognize things within yourself, you realize how much you can ignore the signs of what you now need to protect yourself from. So it's not so much a painful process, but it is a process that you may have to navigate from the fact of what you used to accept, what you no longer will accept. Just, the patterns where you have to recognize, again, what I've called or what some of us know to be like karmic, a cycle of karma that you may have to clear in order to move forward. And with this moving forward, you still have a greater responsibility to yourself as well as your inner child. I got bear with me. I'm just trying to prepare a sandwich, but yeah, it's even more, like I said, I'll give y'all examples of the fact of whether you have children by someone. And again, people feel like, and I'm going to show you how trauma bonds in itself reveal itself to where someone has to not be just a bigger person. It's more so of becoming more self-aware of what you need to do to protect yourself moving forward along with your inner child. Because, man, there's so many different things when you recognize some people don't even know. Think about the unconscious awareness of some people don't even know or care to know what they're going through. And this is why some of us can get so much pushback when we come to self-realizations where we have to move differently to protect ourselves, and not too many people will be accepting of it. And, and that's simply because they're choosing not to see the problem and more so used to escaping through controlling narcissistic behavior, or just the fact of, it goes as deep as sociopaths and borderline. I've talked before on the other video on my other channel, borderline, dealing with borderline, personality disorders. And a lot of that has to do with the fact of dealing with a lot of traumas and not realizing, not even knowing that you're in something and acting something out in a way to where you think you're protecting yourself, but in reality, you're bringing more harm because you're so used to being in a cycle of something that's familiar. And it's like a child that doesn't know any better. They're only going off what they've seen and so forth. And that's how deep a lot of stuff can be when it comes to this mental health thing and the inner child, and realizing you had no one tell you that a lot of these behaviors can, learned behavior patterns can bring you to a place of not just self-harm, but how it affects other people, because you're so used to being loyal to a wound, to a childhood wound, to a childhood trauma. You're so used to being loyal to that, to where you don't see anything else being healthy. And the reason I say this is because I start to recognize who was so much unhealthy. As I start to pour into myself more, I really start to learn who was really unhealthy for my inner child. And that's all across the board. It isn't just you with yourself. You start to recognize this even with relationships, the closest ones to you, other than children. But even children, think about that. Even children that have been in situations where, in a neighborhood where children have been exposed to a lot of trauma early, and this is how they unconsciously prey on other kids, meaning their inner child or in just their upbringing has been through a lot of trauma so early that they don't recognize that a lot of what they do in their behavior, how they acting, whether they want to be a part of things that eventually will bring them self-harm, but they don't recognize it until it affecting everyone else involved. So this is why you can see in the long haul how a lot of things catches up with people. And this is why it's so beautiful and so deep for me, because just think about the fact of your mother and father having kids, and they stay in things for the kids, but in reality, they're ignoring the depths of the fact of why they choose to stay. And is this a trauma bond? Is this a loop? I gotta eat, bro. Look, I done made me a double whammy. But anywho, so going back to the fact of like even me being a father, there's certain things I couldn't ignore when it came to people connected to the mother of my children, my second family, as I call it. The more and more I started to realize the journey I was on, it didn't matter who you were, your status, your career, how much money you had, and so forth. The more and more I start learning about the inner child, how much I've been in placed myself in uncompromising positions, been in unhealthy environments, seeing the people surrounding me who supported certain things, you start to recognize, like, most likely a lot of these people deal with borderline personality disorder, some type of deep trauma, PTSD, and most importantly I was getting is you're dealing with people who are undeveloped emotionally. So when it comes to that, when you're dealing with, let's say, someone who's 50, right? And it's like someone who's out on, like, homeboys that's still out on the street trying to escape through selling drugs, or even a man who may not be of the same nationality and so forth, but he's still trying to escape through some type of place of where his power was taken as a child. And he got a position in whatever to where he use it as a sense of control. So he abuses his authority because he's living in this false sense of power. Because people confuse power and authority. Yeah, you can reclaim your power. I speak about that. But that also is a part of you standing in your authority and doing what that is, balance, and brings righteousness and brings a sense of joy, not just for yourself, but how it ripples to other people. You embody the authority. You embody both power and authority. Some people, in their free will, due to what has happened to them growing up and so forth, abuse their power of authority. Through authority. And this is something that has happened to me when I realized how much unsafe people were for themselves. For a lot of y'all, when y'all see this message, you're going to realize how unsafe, as the more you get to know yourself and start to see yourself from a healthier lens, a more sacred lens, things that you realize you have to protect yourself from, because if you associate yourself with this person, I've talked about before, knowing how, like in my book, my new book that I'm creating, it's called Karmics, Lovers, and Twin Flames. People aren't familiar with that, that's fine. But those who will and know, I'm speaking about lessons of wit through people and my own experiences and so forth, and I go into depth. And again, it brings it all the way back to realizing a lot of people were not just even if they had a lot of free will growing up, that still could have placed them in positions where people were unsafe for them because no one taught them the importance of boundaries. And so therefore, a parental figure or guardian or whatever never established that. For some people, you could have got in relationships with people, had children, got married, and so forth on blurred boundaries. You know, you never really instilling the importance of, well, I don't like this. This is not safe, or this is happening. How many people get together and then in establishing a foundation of talking about what you went through as a child? Because then, when sex isn't involved but has already happened, you've already given a part of yourself emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and you're entrusting in this person to protect you on those levels. That's how important the inner child aspect is, I've learned. I realize, like, on a deeper level, whatever that person experienced they've dealt with emotionally is how they're going to exchange and interact with you, whether that is a place of not more just stable, but are they balancing their emotions? You're getting to know a person from all their lived experiences. So you're not just getting to know the adult version of someone. You're getting to know the teenage version, the childhood version, and so forth. And that inner child is a part of that. That little boy and girl is always with them. So when I reference the fact of when people don't realize that a lot of their unsuccessful relationships stem from the fact of, did you ever had a healthy and successful relationship when it comes to you showing up for yourself, or people teaching you what it is to have a healthy, assertive relationship with yourself through emotions, through spiritually, through your spiritual practices, your rituals, whatever you want to call it, because we naturally do this. When we get up, it's like children. We get up, we eat cereal. That's a form of a ritual. Now, when you grew up in something unhealthy, like I grew up in, where a lot of things were disrupted through someone's inability to where, through emotional abandonment, physical abandonment, growing up in an abusive environment, then a part of what people don't realize that I've learned to, in being more relaxed and soothing my inner child and feeling safe again, it connects to the fact of how disrupted my nervous system became, how dysfunctional the environments enabled me to expect people almost to enable the dysregulated nervous system before they actually, supported me in a healthy way. It was what I was so familiar with the familiarity of having a dysregulated nervous system, to where now I'm processing a lot of these things through my emotional body, purging, crying. I'm realizing how unsafe my inner child was, even around people, certain people, even when I had no knowledge of it. Until I knew now, I realized, I'm like, wow, this little Terrence, this little boy has always been there. I see now, as I move away from people, how relaxed I become when I'm not around them. Think about that. Those of you that have went through sexual abuse, physical, financial, and so forth, and then it's almost scary because your nervous system is so used to being on edge, or being heightened, or being this anxiety, depressive, whatever it is you had to navigate through after said experience, even when you were in your childhood, when you didn't even recognize what was going on. And I had to experience this, even the fact of, as I start to learn my inner child more and protect it and nurture it and so forth, mother and father myself, the mother aspect is to honor those emotions, to honor the soft parts of me, the parts of me where when I went through things, no one was there to catch me in a soft landing. And for people who were, wounded and so forth, their expectancy was just get up, you're a man, you're this. And it's much different from an approach from a little boy than a little girl. And, I've seen it happen through the fact of having relations with people, the mother of my children, how people can be so supportive when it comes to women navigating things and so forth. But still, a lot of it I start to recognize outside of that is that how much people are still can be overgiving, but not balancing out their inner child. So even I was telling someone, even if they disguise themselves so much with being overly kind people are still just as much of, whether they know it or not, unconsciously, unsafe for your inner child. How many people we know that came in so kind and sweet, and then you start to learn the layers of their ass? Because sometimes you may trigger something within them they didn't even know they had. And this is why the shift of what is happening. And that's why I talk about this. How many of y'all got swindled into stuff? Glamored and, oh, this person looks so good. And I went through that. Should I put people through that? Because I knew nothing about protecting myself. I had no knowledge of vetting people. Know nothing about their background, what they went through, their childhood experiences. And it was a recipe for disaster. It doesn't matter how you cook it up, no matter how you look, it's just surface. That's one ingredient. Okay, the other ingredients and so forth, recipe for disaster. Because those who know, see, I cook too, so I went to Job Corps for culinary arts. And I knew people in there who bake. And they was like, it's not the same as trying to cook food and so forth. Because you have to approach it and have patience. With baking, you have to have a lot more patience, because you have people who were great at baking. Some people that were great at cooking. It's not the same. Ingredients, not the same. And then one thing that the head chef was telling me in there, like, one thing, no recipe is the same. So you got to think about that. No one person is the same. No relationship is the same. So think about how we're given all this false illusion of, people out in certain status, their relationships, and we're given, we want, it's this illusion of idolizing them and so forth. Which people don't realize, that's a whole other form of distraction and also enabling narcissistic behavior. Because when you see a lot of those people, and I'm gonna get back to the recipe thing, when you see a lot of those people and how what we've been force fed, it distracts us from actually getting to know ourselves deeper. Because a lot of what they go through, notice how a lot of those people on the surface aspect go from this man, this woman, this one. We always get to know, like, oh, such and such is together, oh, such, and then notice it's always pertaining to looks. The powers that used to be all of that, again, distraction through just surface shit, physical stuff. Again, it goes back to the same thing. Oh, look how nice they look. And da-da-da-da-da, this and that. But deep down, they still have an inner child too. They still are going through stuff too that you know nothing about. So again, the head chef, going back to that, because I'm going to relate this to the inner child and recipes and people. No one recipe is the same. You can add to, but you can never take away. Think about that. Meaning, like, you can get in a connection with someone, you can add as much as you want to on the surface to make it look a certain way, but that shit's still gonna come out just as nasty, disgusting, especially when you don't realize the importance of, it's the intention. And that's what goes back to the inner child, what you've experienced. It's the intention behind what you're doing. And the patience that you have to have when it comes to cooking, when it comes to prepping, when it comes to baking and so forth. So again, I will never forget the fact that she was like, you can always add to. So think about two people coming. No one recipe is the same. So you got to think about, you got this person with this experience, this person with this experience. They don't know much about each other, but they're coming in to try to collab or partnership amongst trying to, this person is used to cooking, this person is used to baking. Think about that. So this person, like I said, used to growing up in dysfunctionality, this person isn't. So now you come together, most likely it's going to become a recipe for disaster. Most likely someone's going to give up because this person who grew up in a certain environment may not have patience. No one, dealing with emotional abandonment, physical abandonment. Most likely a lot of people are going to have commitment issues, because once you grow up in a lot of inconsistency, it's very challenging. I learned this later on in life. It's challenging for people to commit to one task or the PTSD where their focus is somewhere so much more all over the place where they don't complete a task. So think about that in relationships. Think about that when you realize when you come together, ingredients. Think about that. Ponder on that when it comes to the fact of your inner child. This person has ingredients. Those ingredients you don't know everything about. So they're coming into your life. You create magic together. You're cooking together. You're learning each other. That doesn't mean you're going to agree on everything. Because that's what a lot of partnership is. Your inner child, you grew up with this. They grew up with that. This person, you know, and if a person didn't grow up with a lot of consistency or seeing things healthy, seeing things operated, they're not going to know how to manage and sustain a relationship with themselves. If they never had nothing healthy, anyone showed them, guide them what it is to manage a relationship with themselves, they're not going to have one with you. So go back to the inner child aspect. When I look at my mother, my father, and a lot of people that grew up in certain environments, why certain things they operated and how they did, think about the recipes they were given for life. It's like a blueprint. Whatever they were given growing up in their childhood was a recipe for whatever they were going to pass on to you, teach you. And think about that. I give you this recipe. Now you're offering it on a platter to whomever you're in a relationship with. Or you offering this to the world. And you wonder why people keep throwing it back and they're unhappy with what you're giving them. You know why? It's so distasteful. It's because you never take time out to really see what you're presenting. That's why some people can go and just offer you sex. That's why some people can come and just offer you this. Instability, even when they disguise it. That's why some people can only manipulate you. Or they manipulate. All this goes back to bring it back to self. But once you sit down and realize how important it is to protect the inner child, or to nurture, to structure yourself, you'll start to realize how unsafe the world has been for you, the environments, the people, what's been built in place to keep you in limbo, to keep other people in limbo. Real talk. A lot of us ain't ready for no fucking relationship. A lot of you were never ready for marriage. Because the ideal behind it. Self-sacrificing, 50-50. If you're whole by yourself, how you going to give half of something? Pouring into yourself. And plus, I've learned this through learning more of healing the inner child. It was very difficult when I knew I was coming out of something, didn't heal. No one ever taught me the importance of, you're not capable right now of giving anyone anything. So now when you jump into something, it becomes more chaotic. You wonder why. You never sat with yourself. You never processed things and so forth. So a lot of what I realize now, later on, even after having children and so forth, it's nothing against the mother of my kids. It's nothing against no one else. It's about me realizing like, yo, I haven't been safe for me. And then I realized having not been safe for me, then I connected to someone who I realized, and that's the realization you come to when you realize like, oh shit, this has become a trauma bond. This person ain't safe for me now. So now your whole belief system, your whole mindset, your whole approach in life has to completely change. You don't feel safe around this person. And think about that. No one ever told you that. Because growing up, some of y'all went through trauma, sexual abuse, and you took this narrative on like this was normal. And it's not. It's not okay. Because when there's kids involved, guess what? You're going to realize it affects them too. They're going to think that that's normal to experience. And take this right into their life, these recipes that they pick up, taking notes, and they're going to serve it to someone else. And when you look in the world right now, America and the surrounding and so forth, a recipe for disaster. Again, it was very deep to me to come to this self-realization or this revelation. Like, man, am I not knowing how to be safe and protect my inner child brought me self-harm and affected other people, or attracted people who are just as unsafe? You know how difficult that is to come into that awareness, even for some of us who have had kids. And then people don't know how to separate their, I don't mean just physically, I mean like to almost pull themselves apart from the fact of setting their own emotions and so forth aside, thinking for themselves. Because if you grew up in codependency and you grew up in trauma bonds, you're not naturally going to be codependent or dependent on other people with an unhealthy attachment, because it's the little boy and girl in you that doesn't know how to fend for self, protect self, or stabilize their own emotion and feel a sense of emptiness to where you stay longer than you want to. And it's not your fault. A lot of us didn't know this. I'm telling you from lived experience. I don't feel shame and guilt. I had to go through this shit to find balance. Like, oh my gosh. I have to prepare a life where I have to, this is about my nervous system now. This is about me regulating a nervous system that the people that were unsafe for me and my inner child growing up, well, the childhood then, and then me growing up, recognizing like the inner child in me deserves that. The inner child in me is crying out, needing to be regulated, needing to be in a functional environment, needing to be in a safe, secure, and stable environment. And I was telling someone else, that reflects inwardly. In the uncomfortability of coming to this self-realization and having this revelation while you're in something can be one of the most challenging shit. Because a lot of people can leave abruptly in a way where they don't resolve what they previously had in a relationship or a connection and move forward. And that's something like I told myself I was not finna do. People can assume, because you can have being connections where, again, it'll reveal people's codependency and insecurities to where it will almost highlight the fact of what they're codependent on, whether it be a financial situation, things dealing with kids. It basically collapses the whole infrastructure or the foundation, because you got to realize you built it on your inner child being unsafe. So why are you surprised that it will collapse? That's for somebody. I had to go through that. I was in when I didn't have the awareness of the inner child, I still knew the fact of when things got to a point where I start to realize the value system again. The value system goes to the fact of the inner child being protected, being embraced, even to the depths of like, notice how people, when they come and they see kids, or some of y'all where you have children, and a person come in and you have been walking on eggshells or felt like you walk on eggshells, or it becomes so like uncomfortable to where, now you're at a place where I want to co-parent or I want to do this. Even in situations like that, it's still going to reveal the fact of the other person's codependency, to where are they naturally going to jump into something simply because of what? It's going to reveal most likely childhood things, woundings or so forth, especially reveal a genuine support system. Because naturally when people are codependent or being in something unhealthy, they'll jump right into something with another person because they feel that this can bring them a sense of clarity or support or balance when it comes to, the interaction with the child. So you see this happen with a lot of men and women, or I've seen it happen with women, to where they do need the financial support because they don't know what's going to happen. I get that. Or they do need support because a lot of it, they don't acknowledge the fact of what they deem as support is disguised as another codependent tactic that they're trying to escape through, because they don't know how to be with themselves. They don't know how to be alone. They don't know how to choose to get to know themselves more in a season where it's important to. So you know that even with distance, it builds more of a structure that's more healthy rather than codependent, because cycles of going through that, and I've seen people do this, is only you're just gonna regurgitate or repeat a cycle through another person by jumping into something else. That's the very thing that's gonna happen. The energy still, the person may look different, they may have more finance, they may have this and that, but the energy is still going to present itself. The recipe is still the same because you didn't change the ingredients, or you didn't feel like you need to go back to the drawing board and recreate something. So with that, this still prompts the fact of how even in the dynamics where it's mother and the father and kids, it's still the patience you have to have with yourself to realize, like, this person is unsafe. They're not secure in who they really say they are. It doesn't matter their status, y'all. Doesn't matter. I don't care if you're dealing with celebrities, politicians, people, wherever it is, in community settings and so forth. It's still going to reveal the fact of they don't know how to really navigate through things or be with themselves or be stable enough to try to build something by stone, that is really more secure and stable. That reflects whatever they're ignoring when it comes to their inner child. It cannot be ignored. And that's a cycle that will continue. One moment. Yeah, I had a little interference, but now, continuing the video, I realized I was getting more clarity after I was eating my sandwich and so forth, where I was going to speak about the fact of, like, it's not so much, how we have this idea around relationships and we love to say, oh, this person wasn't for me. And, we're basically saying the same thing when it comes to people. When you recognize the dysfunctionality in family, the structure that you realize doesn't fit anymore, it's the same recipe. You start to recognize, like, these are the same people who have had the same recipe to whatever outcome of what they put in the oven, and then they're unhappy with what's coming out. It becomes so distasteful to where you start to realize this is the same pattern. This is the same fucking loop that mama and grandma and grandpa and everybody else been living in, and now you're asking me to go through it and not oblige, but object or rebel against it. No. It's the same as when you look at any type of relationships and partnerships. Simple. In your coming into more of who you are, meeting yourself deeper, there's naturally going to create a distance. There's naturally going to become this eerie feeling around the uncomfortability of you wanting to stay in something that not only isn't safe for you or secure, it's not, no matter how much you tweak it, no matter how much you want to. For some people, meet somebody with all this money and meet this person with all like this. Again, it's not so much of just a person saying they're not for me. What you're basically saying is, this person is not healthy for my inner child. They're not suitable. What they're presenting is not sustainable for my inner child to flourish, to be itself, to be authentic. Think about that. Ponder on that. And when you think about that, reflect on the fact that I think about all the time, like, even in relationships where, I shouldn't go sit over here, actually. Even in the fact of, like, when it came to recognizing the trauma bond with my mom and growing up and so forth that I had to navigate through and got out of, I realized that, again, this person not only wasn't suitable, and what she was doing wasn't for the betterment for myself and the well-being of my inner child. She was the first representation, along with my father, of that, to protect that. So this doesn't go away when you grow up. When you in relationships and so forth, that doesn't go away. It doesn't go away when it comes to the fact of like your mother and father were to protect your inner child or do these things when it comes to on so many different levels, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and so forth. And guess what that prepared you for? Relationships that reflected that same energy. That's why unconsciously we can get into something we don't even recognize that is literally mirroring back that which was unresolved, not only within our mothers and fathers, but within that has progressed into something, progress more to who we are and who we become in certain relationship dynamics, where we accepted the bare minimum when a lot of what we were surrounded around was people with insecurities who didn't know their worth. So we accepted the bare minimum when it came to living situations, being financially abused, being emotionally, mentally, physically abused. And what that is that you're telling yourself, the adult you or wherever you are, and even your inner child, that this is acceptable. So again, that was the starting point for a lot of our mothers and fathers to actually be the guide for that. The guide for how we sustain our life and moving forward. The signs can't be ignored. Those you know. You start growing up, you start to realize, like, what the fuck? And that's only for the ones who are willing to do the inner work. Like I tell you, this didn't happen overnight. I gradually started to realize, like, man, it ain't even, you see the person, you see what you went through, and luckily enough for some of y'all can get on the same page and realize, like, and some people don't, because you have to go through that. Some people get on the same page and you realize, like, you know what, this isn't the best or for everyone involved and so forth. But that still doesn't mean that person or you still don't have inner work to do, because even if you come out of something, how many people still go through the vetting process with themselves? Even if you have children, how many people still go through the vetting process when it comes to someone entering your life? Like I said, you ain't just vetting them. It's a process you go through with the fact of, like, you're vetting their inner child. Yeah, people do background checks, but you're still vetting their inner child. And I realize in this awareness how protected I become in a lot of things. I thought I saw somebody that I knew. How more protected I am and become aware of just how to navigate through this shit. Where times where I would react, in my reaction, it was just basically saying, like, you're not loving me correctly. Or you're not doing, think about in the unhealthy shit where people gaslight, rage bait people to do stuff. That's basically them saying that, hey, I'm trying to get you to enable my dysfunctional behavior pattern. I'm trying to get you to enable the wound so my inner child, this is normal to my inner child. Think about how fucking dysfunctional that shit is. That's basically what you see in dynamics and what we've been convinced to do when it comes to even people who are emotionally unavailable. Dealing with parents and people who are emotionally unavailable. You're now in a relationship with someone, and here you are, this sensitive person. Because you've been like that since you were a child. You've been like this since you were a child. Now you want to interact with a person who has dealt with something growing up, who don't even know how to navigate their emotions. Not realizing the benefits of all of this is the more you get to know your inner child, the more you heal, the more you start to become aware of what you were in and so forth, and you do the inner work and shadow work, not only will you align with people who have done it, but they'll see you not just from a place of you wanting to be acknowledged. It's how deep they met themselves. And this goes back to, for a lot of you, like, let's say you dealt with some abandonment issues and so forth. We all want to feel seen. We all want to feel heard. And when you didn't get a lot of these simple things, like natural, I'm gonna say natural remedies, but the nurturance and basic needs and so forth, these things start to reflect growing up with people and environments, even myself. Dealing with emotional abandonment and physical abandonment, I realized I was in certain connections unconsciously repeating patterns of wanting people to see me for who I was. And then what I did is that I stayed in things that people who only saw me for what I was, not for who I was becoming. And see, that's the thing about the inner child, is where, you know, as you heal, you're becoming. You're navigating through things where you're becoming the very thing that either you were trying to escape from, which is the innocence, the joy, the things that, the happiness that was already there before it was not just so much ruined, but people projected their fears and so forth onto you. And that's why I realized that the identity crisis a lot of people are going through. They find themselves vicariously trying to live through their partner. Their emotional needs unmet, not realizing it reflects something in their childhood. A lot of things go unmet, unfulfilled, because they grew up with parents. And then what makes it even more unsafe, you have the parents vicariously trying to keep them unhealthily attached to them because their needs were never met. Young, emotionally, mentally. So this is where you find enmeshed relationships, emotional incest. And all of this is highlighting the unsafety of eventually the caregiver or whomever were in their life just as unsafe. So they are more enabled to dysfunctionality to keep that foundation, you know, to almost keep you and your partner or friend, you know, whatever it is, friendships or whatever, keep it in loop, or what's the word I'm looking for? Keep it as unstable as possible. Making sure that you, in any way, shape, or form, have nothing that's healthy. Because they don't see you through that lens. Because the lens they see you through is wounded. Because this is how their inner child has been consistently, and they've been persistent on keeping their inner child burden, or feeling like it was a burden, or feeling like shut down and shut away and so forth. So they repeat these loops. And most people don't know, they try to vicariously live it through you. And this is where the uncomfortability comes in, when a lot of us as kids, or they grow into adulthood, who choose to reclaim their power and standing up for ourselves, but then operate authority in a more healthy, holistic way. In an approach where they assume that you're being meaner or you're being more aggressive. Yeah, aggression is a part of it, and assertiveness, because you're asserting yourself now in a more healthier way that you protect your inner child. And again, this happens through dynamics in relationships and so forth throughout your whole life that most people cannot comprehend, because they have built these false identities around empowerment, built these false identities around authority, and naturally abused it. This is why some elders in the family are so unsafe for, or so an endangerment to a lot of the youth, a lot of people, because you know why? They lost sight of what really connects them to joy. I ain't gonna say bring them joy, but connects them through joy. But they feel children and other things bring them joy. That's why a lot of people, they light up when they see kids. Not everyone, but I've noticed this. For some of you, this would be clarity. I've noticed in healing my inner child and learning more about me, and I also noticed this with the child, what is it? The child daycare system and a lot of this stuff, how they place women in these positions. A lot of this has kept mothers and fathers, because a part of it preying on your childhood woundings or your inner child is to keep them so much in limbo to where they don't get a chance and to sit down with themselves. This men and women. And so now this is why they so much friction, so much anger and unresolved shit in the household. It eventually spills over because it goes back to them, their needs being unmet. So when certain men come home, their needs are unmet. They're looking for more emotional support. Hey, how you been? Are you okay? And you have some women that don't know how to offer that because it goes back to the fact of what were ingredients, what were they given young. So when people attack them and saying like they don't know how to be a woman, or they want them to be more softer, and all of this reflects the fact of, again, the inner child and the nurturance that they didn't receive. So it don't matter how much you twist and turn it. When you've been given these examples in the world and the media and so forth on how women should be, it's a distortion. It's a distorted way. And most likely that distortion comes from a distorted mother and or father, a dysfunctional foundation that they've been convinced that works for everybody. So now you have these characters that y'all have that were placed in the forefront for little girls to model after, to keep more of the distortion, to keep more of the dysfunction, to keep more of the fact of like, keep them away from the inner child. Keep them away from really learning the things that really connects them to joy, childlike things, the innocence of who they are, not the innocence being stripped. That's what the powers that used to be. You think that wasn't the game plan? Anything to keep y'all in a way of giving up your innocence willingly or stripping it unwillingly. Anything to keep you from experiencing structure, balance, building anything upon joy, bliss, harmony. Why would we give you that? Because then eventually you will build a world around it. Not just your world, because it begins with you first, but it will affect what we have placed. You know, why would we give you that? That's the wickedness in it. But that's what's being restored. And that's why I start to recognize like how much people have never had fun growing up. They may have had what they call the freedom, because they actually think freedom is actually the same as sovereignty. It's not. Because again, the word dome, like domination, the dominatrix and all that stuff, is just a form, another different way of giving you this illusion of freedom, when you can realize like the home of the free of what? Look. Free of what? A lot of stuff is to keep y'all in limbo, keep you in fear. Fear of overcoming things with joy, with authenticity, with integrity, where your inner child wouldn't even care about fear itself, because it was never, your essence of your soul, you're fearless. Look at children when they're young. This is why so many people, you know why they light up when they see kids? Because there's something in them that reminds them. And this is what I've also know that reminds them of the purity, the innocence, the fearlessness. That's why people, oh my God, she's so fearless. She ain't scared of nothing. But notice how people who are fucked up inside or have been wounded, or their childhood wounds have been preyed on, they take their, what they call power of authority, and abuse it by trying to control the child, by trying to monitor them, by trying to control whatever it is, mentally, emotionally, shut it down, shrink in any way, because it reflects their internal fucking world. And this is how you recognize in a society, in a corporation, of people or the powers that used to be, how they, again, convince y'all to actually think that this shit is okay when it comes to how you've been treated, to normalize it. Oh, it's okay, brush it up on the rug. No, the fuck it's not. No, it's not. And it has never been okay. Because you keep thinking that the power is in other people's hands, or you keep thinking the authority is in their hands, when they're a clear indication that they abuse their authority only for you to reclaim yours. This is how I know I'm untouchable. This is how I know. I can see through the bullshit, the isms and schism, and be discerning when it comes to the fact of like, oh, I just know you not safe from my inner child. I just know you not safe from my inner child. And the deeper I become with this shit, I start to recognize, oh, that goes to people's spiritual community, your regular community, family. Yeah. But then they can't manipulate you. They can't use their magic. They can't glamour anymore. They can't do certain shit. That's why I tell you why people light up. It's the same thing to where you could have been in a relationship with someone. Let's say you have kids by and so forth. And I've noticed something to where I'll see people, when they see the kids, they have this, you know, depending on what they went through with the mother of their kids and so forth, or the father of their children, they light up when they see the kids. But it also, due to the fact of what they went through with the person, they naturally want to protect themselves from them, or they have this anger. And basically what it is, they have this unresolved emotion. Sometimes, depending on prior to you getting together or having children, most of the time, it don't have nothing to do with you. But in their inability to recognize that a part of them was not able to, a part of them didn't even have the capacity to love the person because they didn't love themselves, and they learned that pattern through someone else. So now they're blaming this person and then find themselves trying to vicariously live out their happiness or their joy through the child. You see a lot of people do this. They'll try to live their joy through the child. And that's why you see a lot of people try to vicariously live out their dreams or certain things through the children. That's your daycare systems. That's your structures in place. That's what has happened. It cannot be overlooked, because think about it. Just think about it. It's not inner child care. That's a whole different concept. It's daycare. Then you gotta make people adjust to certain things, because then you put them in uncompromising positions where some mothers not able to pay it and so forth. They're not able to do a whole bunch of stuff. So now, if they're in survival mode, now they're trying to fight tooth and nail to try to make ends meet. And a lot of this is rooted in, again, childhood wounds, survival mode, them growing up in certain environments where they don't naturally use their gifts, or were told to use their gifts to look at life fearlessly, to overcome things without trying to feel like, you know, them never really coming out of their lower nature, to feel like, to look at life basically abundantly. I'm gonna elaborate more. I'm just wait till I get across the street. I'm gonna go this way. See. So yeah. So that was something I was picking up on. Again, it's not inner child care. There isn't a balance when you go into these structures. I know people who work in the public, Montessori, and all that other stuff. These women still look. Let me tell y'all something, mothers. Just because this still is an inner child, unfiltered inner child. Just because that woman is getting more resources, and just because her husband or whomever it is makes more money and their kids still get access to certain things, doesn't mean that they're still not a part of a system that preys on their inner child. They're still not letting children, like I've seen in the Montessori, it's like, when you think about when we were young, we outside so much. But as you grow, they put you in buildings. Look, you think that term box you in ain't significant? They box you in, keep you boxed in, keep you boxed in for a reason. Think about that shit. Keep you boxed in, keeping you like in a place of limbo to make it seem like, oh, they're getting more. But in actuality, man, they all still a part of the same fucked up system. They've been preying on everyone's inner child. What makes you think the structure is any different just because this person get more resources? They still all a part of the same monetary system that's collapsing. So now the tables have turned, and now if those who know, everyone's in a position where you can either use this shit to alchemize, transform. You can use this as a way of realizing, like, I need to recognize what's really going on here, and so forth. You can look at it like, I've been given this illusion, this false interpretation that I'm better than somebody just because I live in this environment, just because I live in this neighborhood. No, you're not. Systematically, when you look at the foundations, it's all been preying on your childhood wounding. You just actually assume just because they get better treatment somewhere else. It's just like the Wizard of the Oz. They all had to come, they all start supporting each other along the way. Even if this person didn't have this person didn't have this, they all start. Because one person didn't have courage. This person didn't have this. It was all a part of them coming to the same realization that it was somebody pulling the strings behind all this shit. And even the person that was pulling the strings wasn't even that secure. Strength in numbers. And the collapsing is when it comes to the inner child aspect. Like, when I look at the public, yeah, those kids are more exposed. But I was telling someone the other day, I was like, bro, at least you know what you get in the hood. At least, at most, you know what you're getting when you come to an environment. Go to another neighborhood. I said, you know what's scary about that shit? These are the people who don't even realize, they're so unaware what's really going on in the real world. They're the ones distracted by the TV. They're the ones distracted by, allowing other people to dictate their life and control their life. They're the ones consumed by, they're the ones mostly codependent. That y'all think that people in the hood are mostly codependent on the system. No, they are too. The fuck you think makes you think that they're exempt? They are too. Because think about how it was designed to keep the people that were what it was perceived as less fortunate in position so they can make their, what was that system called? Like when you actually see the origins of Section 8 and when you actually see how certain people got on it to actually progress and navigate through it to set themselves up and other people to get in certain neighborhoods. Oh, yeah, go research that. Go research that. It was, but then that's where people got to, they let their authority or they let their power rule them. They let their lower nature consume them. They misuse their authority. Y'all gotta realize all this shit that has happened, the divine has placed certain people in a position of authority. But the abuse has came through the power. They were given the position, the authority, but it's the abuse of power. That's why so many people get so derailed or get to a position and they can't sustain it. Because you know what's revealed? When you look at a system that's preyed on your childhood woundings, that's what's collapsing. The inner child aspect, when it preys on your inner child and so forth, that's what y'all don't realize. The shift in power has happened. It's because it wasn't built on prioritizing the inner child or children. Because when you prioritize the inner child, you just see the connection with all children. Not this child getting over here, getting this resources and get to go to this school and get all these things and
eat differently, while this child over here get da-da-da-da-da, this and that. This mother over here don't get access to this, and this mother coming in from a different country and getting resources and all this other shit. Judgment, divine justice is here. That's why I tell you how people light up when it comes to the fact of they only through children being reminded of not just the inner power that they have, but also the authority and the sovereignty that they were given to live out their birthright. Unapologetically, authentic. Not it being taken advantage of by people who don't love themselves. All these people you see in position, they don't love themselves. They don't practice self-care. They may show it. They may keep giving this illusion, but they don't see the interconnectedness about how significant the inner child aspect is. And with that, this is how, when you actually do the inner work, you start to recognize again the environments, the people, the places, and so forth that doesn't truly reflect your inner world. It doesn't truly reflect your inner world. It doesn't truly honor the fact of what you navigated through your progression, came to the self-realization about, the revelations you're having. It's no coincidence that the people and the environments, the countries and so forth, yeah, it can be a painful experience. It can be an experience where you have to grieve. And it's also an experience where you have to trust you more. That's one of the things I learned more in trusting and surrendering to my inner child and how I had to show up more. I realized the trust issues that came up around the fact of having a mother wound and so forth. Realizing how a lot of these connections, it was fearful to go away from dysfunction. But then when I started to realize, like, no, in loving myself more, love and fear don't exist together. And so that's where you see people's fear of losing you. That's through codependency, fear of you coming into yourself. This is why they promote fear so much, because this is how their corporations and all these systems that are collapsing, this is why it keeps people at a lower nature or the lower consciousness of them rising to fearlessness. Because love doesn't fear. Authenticity doesn't fear. It faces it. It realizes it's a part of the progress. It's a part of the mission. It's a part of the life challenges. Like my daughter, she was trying to read the word and do some stuff. She like, it's hard. I said, it's not about it being hard. You can cry. You can do all that. I'm learning through them. But you can still be fearless. It's just another challenge along the way, baby. That's it. That's it. And I always remind her, you don't need my approval. I'm just here as a support. But most people have lost sight on the fact of, like, okay, how many of us grew up in environments where we were taught to balance, to show up for ourselves as support before we seek it to someone else? How many of us grew up in things where you got to look at certain demographics? People were brought into this life to naturally be thrown into a spell and an illusion of being dependent on systems rather than learning how to do this shit yourself. So a lot of this stuff is collapsing. Again, it's centered around fear. But as we know, the individual, collective, and people start to do the inner work, people become more fearless. Then that means souls and kids that are coming in naturally embody this. And that's why you see certain shit will try to be amped up to keep people distracted. For what? Because once you start to realize, again, the fear aspect, to keep people at a lower frequency, as some may call it. For me, I just laugh. I laugh more. Look at a child that's really, when you look at a baby, the purity, the innocence, we all, those who know, who have a soul, can see the fact of, like, look at a child. It's like a part of you are looking at what the Creator has brought into this world, and it brings you back to a state of consciousness or awareness of where you were the most innocent, purest, authentic. Your needs were met for some of you, or everybody wanted to see you. Everybody wanted to be a part and making sure you were okay. Now, what has happened in the world? You got your daycare system, you got all these systems. it's went the opposite direction to where people don't care if people are okay anymore. And this has happened with for some of y'all in relationship dynamics where, let's say you have children or you're married and you do start doing the inner work. One thing that will be revealed is that, again, you can have more of a deeper awareness emotionally and have more, because in really looking at the parts of yourself that you heal through from your inner child, you will start to have more emotional empathy for yourself and others. And you'll start to realize like their behaviors have nothing to do with you. You'll start to also recognize the fact though it'll reveal the nurturing that they didn't receive and why they actually assert or behave a certain way when it comes to children. It's because a part of them, either in their overprotectiveness or in their how they show up for the daughter or son, a lot of these things reveal the fact of has nothing to do with you. It's just the fact of like, for some, let's say you went through something very young as a little girl and you grew into adulthood, you had a daughter. Some of you can naturally have a more protection over the daughter. Some of you may not, because no one protected you. No one protected your inner child. And sometimes you're at this place where, well, who's going to protect me now? I've had to protect me most of my life. So that's one of the most challenging things as you grow. And even with healing and facing yourself, it's like one of the most challenging things now I start to realize is like, well, damn, I've had to protect myself most of my life. And the protection can be different. There's a difference between just physical protection. When you are aligned or connected with someone that when it comes to the importance of the inner child is just another term of referencing you in tune with yourself from an emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical place. Some may say astral and so forth, but either way, your connection to the divine, to remind you of your essence. So in reality, a lot of people, realistically proclaim to think that they're protecting people. But when you don't have instructions or being guided by something higher than you that actually wants to bring you to a place of harmony and peace and stability and so forth, then unrealistically you giving off a narrative, which you see in society and so forth, and even people giving off this illusion in relationships that everything is happy. Not when you're placing your happiness or, on someone else, or you looking for them to do that. No, it becomes unrequited eventually. This is what society has breeded, unrequited relationship. This is why you can see people through traumas, through the fact of their inner child never being safe and secure, where they try to escape through relationships, escape through one-night stands, escape through numbing themselves through trying to connect with people, just be a part of stuff without really sitting with themselves. So one thing about I've learned with loving myself more, showing up for myself more, making time and bringing balance, is the awareness of seeing that it's very vital to be in connections with people who also see this. And some people have a good way of trying to mask it as if they've done it. But I've learned also to really see like, no. Some things that I realized, like, that's a whole nother scary part about it too. When you realize how much people will try to uphold an image to be overly nice or to be perceived as if they're nice or want the world to uphold their image, those people too are just as unsafe for your inner child, because eventually you will get a part of them that they don't show to the world, whether that be at home or whether that be in your one-on-one time in exchange. And if you're not in tune, it'll eventually grow into something traumatic or trauma bonding, to where, again, it breeds unrequited relationships. Because once you start to realize how much you have to show up for yourself more, eventually the relationship, if it wasn't built on something honest, authentic, healthy, and secure in the more holistic way, then eventually it's going to become unrequited, because a part of you going to realize like this person isn't who they say they are. Especially if you jump into some shit that you already know that your intentions were just to have sex, or just your intentions was not even nothing to be longevity. You could have had kids from it. It's all a learning lesson. You don't have to beat yourself up over it. A lot of those things were a part of initiations. A lot of things were a part of initiating you to your path, to your healing journey, and so forth. Give yourself grace. I had to. Because I don't feel ashamed and guilt to realize, like, you know what? It's not so much outgrown it, it's just the fact of I poured into myself, so I have outgrown it, I will say that. I poured into myself, I watered myself more, so I have outgrown this situation or the circumstances or connections to where I realize it has become one-sided. It reveals the competitive nature in some people. It reveals the codependency. It basically reveals the wounded ego. It reveals the fact of how, again, they're not safe for themselves and or you. And so now you're trying to find a way out. And it's important to build, as you pour more into yourself, a way will be made. Because I had to learn that through cycles of being in shit to where I was like, man, it doesn't have to end the same way. Traumatic or, just not resolve things with someone. Let them know. You didn't know then. So now you set the boundaries and you set the foundation. Set the foundation in the shit. As you depart, as you leave. It's okay. Sometimes you have to set the foundation even when you know one is crumbling. That's like what they call a tower moment in tarot. And the tower can be a way of a blessing in disguise. It's not always something horrible. When something is being revealed, it's a way of just the divine showing you that this is a completion. Now you decide if you want to loop through it again by trying to save it, by trying to feel like, and we've been through that. We try to, and that's just another form of codependency. Because we don't know, or we fear not being healthily with ourselves or know what it is to be with ourselves. No, that's a form of letting the thing collapse and accepting that this is what it is, and a part of surrender is I just surrender. And then know that, watch the divine reveal you something in dream state, something along your path, and it's basically showing you, like, I'm trying to give you these signs that your inner child is in need, or the higher version of you, your higher self, is in need of being somewhere where it's more stable and secure. This isn't it. Are you going to ignore it, or are you going to go through it again? And it's your choice. That's your free will. Peace.